Some Democrats may be already positioning themselves to be the alternative if President Biden decides not to run again in 2024. Vice President Kamala Harris and California Governor Gavin Newsom have reportedly been reaching out to some of their top donors to, quote, reconnect. Hey, it's been a while since we talked. Can you donate $2,500? All right, one Wall Street executive who raised money for President Biden's 2020 campaign says he's heard from both of them in recent weeks. They each have insisted they are not planning their own White House runs, and the vice president says she plans to be Mr. Biden's ticket mate in 2024. But the moves come after a New York Times Siena College poll found 64% of Democrats do not want President Biden to seek another term, and another poll finds 85% of voters see the country as being on the wrong track right now. Let's bring in Julia Manchester, a national political reporter for The Hill, for a little bit more of a deep dive on that. So I think the best way to say you're running for president is to tell everyone in the world that you're not running for president. So are Vice President Harris and Governor Newsom trying to keep their options open? What do you make of this report?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're seeing this both on the Republican and Democratic side, Mitch. These major figures, whether it's Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris, or on the Republican side, Ron DeSantis, reaching out to donors, convening those donors and, exploring the possibility of a potential bid. With President Biden, though, and I will caution that the White House and the president himself have repeatedly said he will run for re-election in 2024. One consideration is not only those poll numbers you just mentioned, but also his age. We know that President Biden will be over 80 years old when he's running for re-election, or if he runs for re-election in 2024. So that's something absolutely to consider. But you're just seeing a lot of, I think, discontent among Democrats right now. President Biden has not yet been able to really unite his party. We're still seeing Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema acting as spoilers against the Biden administration's agenda in Congress. And of course, you have Senator Bernie Sanders, a progressive, and the rest of the progressive wing of the party unhappy with the lack of what they see of the lack of progress under the Biden administration on what they want to get done. So Biden faces a steep road ahead as he approaches 2024. And I think you are just starting to see a lot of Democrats test the waters. I will say, though, Mitch, the bench is relatively thin for Democrats. It seems like Republicans have a lot more potential prospects, including DeSantis and former President Trump.
Well, and we've also seen this before. There was a lot of Democrats that didn't want Joe Biden to be the nominee, and then he was the nominee, and he ended up winning the presidency. So, they might be stuck with a guy that can actually win the race. We will have to wait and see on that. You mentioned Kyrsten Sinema. She's a senator from Arizona. In Arizona, Mike Pence, the former vice president, and Doug Ducey, the term-limited governor there, they have backed Karen Taylor Robson in Arizona, whereas former President Trump, has backed Kari Lake, who's a former TV news anchor and an election denier. So what is that campaign trail looking like out there in Arizona? And how might this be a proxy for what we might see in 2022 and then again in 2024?
Well, the campaign in Arizona is looking just like that, a proxy battle between Trump's wing of the Republican Party and maybe more what we used to consider the establishment wing of the Republican Party. You have Ducey and Pence backing Robeson, and you have Trump behind Kari Lake. And you're also seeing that play out in other primaries and gubernatorial primaries across the country as well. In fact, not far from me here in D.C., Maryland is holding a gubernatorial primary tonight. And we know that Trump has backed GOP candidate Dan Cox. But of course, Larry Hogan, the governor of that state, much more of a moderate Republican, if you will, he has backed Kelly Schultz, one of his, allies in the Maryland government. So you are seeing this proxy battle really play out, and a lot of it has to do with the results of the 2020 election. Are Republicans going to take a cue from Trump and continue to relitigate an election that happened 2 years ago and focus on this issue of election integrity? Or are they going to talk about other issues that are hitting Americans every day, such as inflation? That's what Pence and Ducey are very much warning about. They say we need to focus on those kitchen table issues like the economy and essentially run against Biden and the Democrats' first 2 years as a majority in Washington. So sort of a split as to what direction to go in, and you're seeing that play out in these primaries.
And Maryland's primary is tonight. Arizona's primary is on August 2nd. So we can look out for those Trump-Pence proxy wars. Just looking forward to it. Julia Manchester, thank you for your time.
Are we really? Looking
No,
forward to
that
it?
was complete sarcasm.
Thank Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.